Army? Welcome back to the DFF Film Room, Camerun People's Edition. Shout out at Dynasty Patrol HQ for the request. This is a guy who I really didn't hear of at all before in this process, and there's probably a reason why, but we're going to dive into the film because there is some interesting stuff there, and he could be a sleeper for sure. Some of Camerun People's best traits are his contact balance. He does show some burst, and also exhibits decent vision in between the tackles. His biggest weaknesses are pretty obvious. It's pass catching and elusiveness. He's a big man, but he doesn't have much wiggle to him, and he's really not a good route runner. He's not built for it, and they never really used him that way at App State. Generally, I have all 22 film, but unfortunately today, Camerun Peoples is just one of those guys who is so unknown that even my source really didn't have him when they have, like, everybody. Players you don't even want. But one way or another, I'm going to work with what I have. And with running backs, you can evaluate a good bit from just about any film, even when you can't get those end zone angles and really see kind of what the line's doing, what the defense is doing. That said, work with what we got, right? Work with what we got. So I'm going to show you some tape here. Work through it, talk through it like I usually do, and hope you enjoy. Let's get it. Peoples is a big, physical back who has pretty good burst for a big man. One thing that stands out in particular is that he doesn't really have much wiggle, and he's pretty tight in the ankles and hips. So getting around the edge, bending around defenders is pretty difficult for him. Though he does show flashes of it here and there, but it's just not something that's really consistent part of his game. And just look at the physicality here. Really just bursts through the line right into the defenders. When I first watched Peoples, I started grading him and making notes, and I was really questioning his vision, and I think that I can still say he has questionable vision, and you can see some of that here, but the more I reviewed him, the more that I saw he did have at least average vision and could read the line and could make some decisions, find holes for himself that weren't always there, and not just run into the back of tacklers. On this play, I think he just relies on his power too much instead of trying to read the field, read the line, and find another opportunity or option. And he gets stood up here. You see, though, right about here, he chooses to go into the defender instead of going outside where he can try to gain the edge or where he can try to make a move on a defender and go inside, but it's probably because he doesn't really have those kind of moves in his bag, and it is hard for him to gain the edge. Right, he takes on the defender here and gets stood up. Here's a pretty good play where he makes a defender miss, but even on this, you can see kind of how rigid he is in his movements. You see, like, his jump cut's really the short stutter step, and it takes multiple steps, multiple shuffles. Now, here's a play where he does show some ability to gain the edge here. Now, here where he shows some flashes that could get NFL execs excited, right? Where could get these GMs excited in the NFL. He just has great contact balance in between the tackles, and you do see some of that vision where he is able to read the field and pick a hole and really be decisive. So on this one, you see really quick here, makes a decision instead of going straight up field and just running his helmet into 11 guys. He chose to go outside here, try to gain the edge, and he does. And then absolutely fights through tons of contact, right? And obviously even this move here wasn't clean, but the ability to get through this tight space right here is nice to see. Shakes off the defender, fights off another one for extra yards, almost gets the first. And again, he's just a bruiser. Takes on contact here, more contact. Here's one where even from this angle, I think you can see him reading the field here and making some decisions in tight spaces. And he does gain some extra yards as a result of it. So you'd like to see him work through that tight space right there, as big as he is, right? He kind of makes himself small, slows up, paces through there, bursts through the hole, fights through contact. That's his game. But look, if a defender catches him in open field, he's going to regret it if he's alone. Maybe even a double team is going to regret it. So here's a really nice play from Cam Peoples where he shows some big playability. Now, I would never describe him as fast per se, but he is a speed builder, and I think that at top speed, he does gain some steam. And you're going to see that on this one. And also he shows that ability to gain the edge that I think is one of the weaker part of his games, but he does show it here. But I do think you can still see how he's kind of tight in the ankles, tight in the hips. He doesn't really have that bend to get around defenders on a consistent basis, but he can do it in certain situations for sure. So you see him get to the outside here. That's a really good move right there. Right? Works upfield, and you can see he's going to shift his hips here a little bit. And the defender's kind of in the way here to see his feet too. And obviously, but he kind of bends around this defender, puts his face into the dirt. Really good stiff arm. And then you can see he builds some speed here. And even in there, you can see him kind of slow down. And even here, you can see him kind of slow up a little bit, not lose too much speed, be able to keep going. So he is pretty athletic for a big man. You see it from the end zone angle here. Get outside. There you go. Right, and this is what I'm talking about right here. Now, you see, again, when I say tighten the ankles, tighten the hips, I'm talking about the bend right here, right? The bend. Now, he got some good hip bend on this one, but you can see how he's just really stiff right here. And I know it's really, and I know we're really getting down to like the details and nuance here, but I think this is the kind of stuff that matters. And when you're looking at these guys going into the NFL and playing against elite defenders, they need to have a little bit more in their bag. They need to have that wiggle. They need to have that extra gear, that juice, right? And I don't know if he necessarily has that, but for his size, he's enormous. He shows good power, and here he obviously shows that big playability, and he does have some speed in his game when he gains some steam. And he can get the edge at times, right? But I think it's specific situations, and this is one of them. I mean, it's mostly the physicality there, though, right? Big dude, good stiff arm, just putting a guy down. And then here again, he steps out, it looks like, yeah. All right, so any film scout or anybody who does film analysis, worth their salt, listens to other people and learns from them, right? Lance Zierlein, one of the best in the business, once said not to ignore the highlights because you'll miss out on great players. And so, we got to show the highlights here. And again, we don't have the all-22, so we're working with what we got. But here's just an absolutely massive play by Cam Peoples, 64-yard touchdown. Let's just see what he's got. And here you just see that speed again, unexpected for a guy of his size to get away from the defenders. I mean, it looks like this is pretty much what this play was designed to do. Does look like he has his eyes on the edge here, and then he decides, all right, let me just cut it upfield, fights through the contact there, and then they just never catch him again. Here's a nice play right here. Gets himself to the edge, evades the defender, good contact balance again. He runs a little upright for me, to be honest, and I've said this in other videos, I think with Tank Bigsby. It makes them more susceptible to being taken down. Leg tackles, anything in the lower body, a little bit easier. Here's a good rep right here where he shows some good footwork in between the tackles. Check out this run right here. Just the contact balance. And that was a good move right there to evade the defender, make a miss, score a touchdown. That's a grown man play right there. I mean, look, he has good shiftiness for his size at certain times, but it's not nearly consistent enough, and I don't think it's going to translate to the next level. But these are the flashes right here that you want to see, right? I just think, again, this gait, running tall, really narrow, doesn't really have a wide base, low center of gravity. And again, these jump cuts, these cuts, just really not much wiggle to them, not much bend to them, really rigid, and he's able to make it work. And I think you see some of that burst, right? He shows that he can get through a hole and really burst upfield, but he is taken down often, especially on tackles at his feet. We've seen when Camerun Peoples finds a hole, he can take advantage of it, but I think his lack of quickness and ability to get to the edge could prevent him from having a full-time role in the NFL. I think he may get typecasted as a short yardage back. The lack of receiving work really caps his upside. Camerun Peoples is a really interesting running back. His size and sneaky speed combination, what he could do if an NFL team believed in him and gave him a shot at a full-time role. That said, I really don't see any way that happens. I think he's more of a short yardage back. His lack of elusiveness, his lack of bend and ability to get to the edge really, I think, is going to typecast him into more of a two-down role at the very best. He could definitely have some touchdown upside in the right situation. I could definitely see how he is a sleeper, but this is a guy who is probably going to go undrafted in most of your dynasty leagues, and you can get on waivers. There's a lot of opportunity there. Throw him on your taxi squad and see what happens. he could turn into something. We've seen these late round running backs turn into something, and I could be wrong. He could have a little bit more of that bend and wiggle, and he did look better in 2021 than 2022. I don't know if there was something going on there in terms of injury related or anything like that, but maybe there's a little bit more there in his game than what I showed on tape here. With all that said, I do think he's a limited player, but he does have some intrigue. If you like what we're doing here at the Dynasty Football Factory YouTube channel, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter at Beaman DFF. Peace out, fam.